Logan said he was meeting investors for just one night, but the elevator feed told a different story. When I saw the woman in the white coat step out of his car, I did not cry. I simply opened a new case file on my encrypted drive. I named it Project Pierce and locked my phone screen. He thinks he is lying to a wife, but he is lying to a fraud investigator. My name is Brianna Hale. I am 36 years old, and my signature is the only thing standing between several Fortune 500 companies and federal indictments. I work as a senior compliance investigator for Northbridge Integrity Group here in Chicago, a job that requires a distinct lack of imagination and a ruthless adherence to the black and white reality of a ledger. I do not guess. I do not hope. I verify. It is a skill set that bought me this apartment in the Loop 3 years before I ever met Logan, and it is the skill set that kept the mortgage paid while he chased his dreams. Logan Pierce, my husband, prefers the title of visionary. In the harsh lighting of a forensic audit, however, he would be classified as a liability. He calls himself an entrepreneur, a man constantly on the verge of the next big disruption. In reality, Logan manages a portfolio of maxed-out credit cards and a surplus of charisma that is rapidly depreciating in value. He lives on the promise of future capital, treating our joint checking account like a venture fund that never requires a return on investment. Tonight was supposed to be the turning point. Logan stood in the kitchen, adjusting the cuffs of a suit that I knew he had purchased yesterday because the alert from the bank hit my phone while I was in a deposition. "I have to go." "Bree, this meeting." "It is the big one," Logan said, his voice dropping to that earnest register he used when he needed a wire transfer. He checked his reflection in the microwave door, smoothing back his hair. "If I land this angel investor from Naperville, we are set. I just need you to, trust the process." I looked at him over the rim of my coffee mug. I did not smile. I did not offer encouragement. I simply nodded. "Drive safe." "Logan, I left my itinerary on the counter. Just in case you get worried," he added, tapping a crisp sheet of paper near the fruit bowl. It was a nice touch, a prop. Amateur fraudsters always provide too much documentation when they are trying to cover a gap in the narrative. I waited until the heavy oak door clicked shut and the lock engaged. I did not go to the window to wave goodbye. I walked to the counter and picked up the schedule. It listed a dinner at a steakhouse in the western suburbs at 7:30, followed by drinks at a hotel bar nearby. I crumpled the paper and dropped it into the recycling bin. Then I opened my laptop. I did not scream. I did not throw a vase against the wall. Emotions are variables that cloud judgment, and right now, I needed raw data. I logged into our shared cloud account. Logan had disabled the location history on his phone 2 hours ago, claiming a software glitch, but he had forgotten that the navigation system in his car uploaded trip logs in real time. The car was not heading west to the suburbs. It was parked in a garage 4 blocks away. I sat down at the kitchen island, the marble cool against my forearms. Something about his appearance had triggered an itch in the back of my brain, a subconscious red flag that usually popped up when a CFO was trying to hide a slush fund. I replayed the image of him standing in the kitchen. The suit was new, the shoes were polished, but his wrist was bare. Logan never took off the vintage Patek Philippe his father left him. He wore it to the gym. He wore it to sleep. He called it his lucky charm, the only tangible asset he actually owned outright. Tonight, for a meeting he claimed was the most important of his life. The watch was gone. My phone vibrated against the counter. It was a text message from a number not saved in my contacts. I swiped the screen to unlock it. Don't believe a word he says. He is not going to a meeting tonight. I stared at the gray bubble. No signature, no follow-up. Just a statement of fact that aligned perfectly with my own deductions. I did not reply. Instead, I opened a new tab on my browser and accessed the building's resident portal. As an owner and a member of the HOA board, I had access to the security feeds in the common areas. I pulled up the timestamp for 10 minutes ago. Camera 4, elevator bank B. The doors slid open on the screen. Logan walked in. He was not alone. A woman stepped in right beside him. She had jet black hair that cascaded over the collar of a stark white trench coat. She did not stand in the corner like a business associate maintaining professional distance. She stood close enough to him that their shoulders touched. As the doors closed, I watched Logan lean in, his body language relaxed, familiar, and entirely devoid of the anxiety he had displayed in our kitchen. He was not going to the suburbs. He was not meeting an investor. He was meeting her. I closed the browser window. My heart rate remained steady at 72 beats per minute. I created a new folder on my encrypted drive. I typed in the name Project Pierce. Then I locked my phone screen. I did not need to run after him. I did not need to make a scene in the lobby. That is what a heartbroken wife does. I am not just a wife. I am an auditor. And I know that the only thing that truly destroys a liar is the paperwork. Logan came through the door at 9 in the morning, carrying his jacket over his shoulder and performing a pantomime of exhaustion that deserved a better audience. He loosened his tie, letting out a long, heavy sigh that was meant to signal a hard-won victory. "Babe, you have no idea," Logan said, dropping his keys on the console table with a clatter. "We were at the negotiating table until 3 in the morning. My head is absolutely pounding." I stood by the kitchen island, holding a mug of black coffee. I did not offer him a cup. I watched him rub his temples, the performance so cliché it was almost insulting. "Did you get the deal I asked?" keeping my voice neutral. He looked up, a grin breaking through the feigned fatigue. "I did not just get the deal. Bree..." I crushed it. "They are talking about an initial injection of $50,000 by next week. We are going to be rich. That is amazing. Logan," I said. He walked over to hug me, and as he leaned in, the truth hit me before he even touched me. It was not the smell of stale cigar smoke or steakhouse grease, which would have been consistent with a business meeting in the suburbs. It was a sharp floral scent, oud and jasmine. It was a perfume called L'Ombre, and I recognized it immediately because I had smelled it on the neck of a donor's wife at a charity gala 6 months ago. It cost $300 an ounce. I let him hold me for exactly 2 seconds before pulling away. "You should shower," I said. "You smell like hard work." He laughed, oblivious to the edge in my voice. Yeah, I'm going to crash for a few hours." As soon as the bathroom door clicked shut and the water started running, I walked into our bedroom and went straight to the closet. I reached for the small, fireproof safe box on the top shelf. I keyed in the code. Inside, the velvet slot where my grandmother's sapphire ring usually sat was empty. It had been missing for a week. When I first noticed it was gone, I had panicked. I asked Logan if he had seen it. "You probably left it by the sink again," he had told me, shaking his head with a patronizing smile. "You know how you are, Bree. You are so scattered lately." It will turn up. I had almost believed him. Gaslighting is effective because it targets your own self-doubt. But looking at that empty slot now, with the smell of jasmine still lingering in my nose, the doubt evaporated. He had taken it. He had taken my inheritance to fund his fantasy life. I pulled out my phone and dialed my insurance agent. "This is Brianna Hale," I said when the line connected. "Policy number 459. 0021. I need to report a theft. Item description Art Deco sapphire ring, platinum setting." "Yes, I have the appraisal." "No, I do not want to file a police report just yet. Just mark it in the system as stolen." I hung up and opened the banking app on my phone. I scrolled back through the transaction history of our joint account for the mortgage. Logan had promised to deposit his half of the payment every month. I filtered the results. The last transfer from his personal account was 6 months ago. For half a year, he had been letting me pay the full mortgage while using his cash to pay the minimums on 3 different credit cards. He was not just cheating on me. He was embezzling from our marriage. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was the same unknown number from the night before. Her name is Sloane, and she is hunting him like a wallet. The name triggered a memory, sharp and cold. Sloan. I closed my eyes, accessing the mental archive of fraud alerts I read every morning at work. Sloan Marquette. Her face had been in an internal bulletin regarding a specific type of investment fraud romance scams mixed with high-pressure time constraints. She targeted men with egos larger than their bank accounts. Logan was not a partner to her. He was prey. I did not go back into the bedroom to confront him. I did not scream. Instead, I grabbed my coat and left the apartment. I had an appointment to keep. An hour later, I was sitting in a glass-walled office in the financial district, opposite Harper Wynn. Harper was a litigator who specialized in financial divorce cases. She was shark-like, efficient, and expensive. "So," Harper said, reviewing the printouts I had brought, "he has drained the equity, stopped contributing to the mortgage, and you suspect he pawned the jewelry." "I do not suspect," I said. "I know." Harper tapped her pen on the desk. "If we file for divorce now, he will hide assets. He will claim the ring was lost. He will drag this out. I do not want to warn him," I said. "I want to record him." "Good," Harper said. "Then we let him dig the hole. If he is desperate enough to steal your ring, he is desperate for cash. We need to give him a rope." I looked out the window at the Chicago skyline. I thought about the empty velvet box. I thought about the lie he told me about being scattered. He took the ring because he is greedy. I said, "So I am going to use his greed against him. I am going to make him sign a document that gives it all back, and he will do it with a smile on his face because he thinks he is winning." "And how will you do that?" Harper asked. "By giving him exactly what he wants," I replied. "A way to feel important?" By the following afternoon, I had ceased to be Logan Pierce's wife in the eyes of the law. Instead, I had become Glasshaven Capital Recovery. It cost me $300 to file the expedited paperwork for the limited liability company, and another hour to set up a virtual office address in Delaware. To the untrained eye, Glasshaven was a boutique firm specializing in bridge loans and distressed asset acquisition. To me, it was a weapon. I logged into the secondary debt market exchange, a place most people do not know exists. This is where banks offload their bad decisions for pennies on the dollar. I searched for Logan's social security number. The results were pathetic. 3 maxed-out credit cards and a delinquent personal loan. I purchased the entire portfolio for 12 cents on the dollar. I now owned his debt. If he defaulted, I did not just have grounds for divorce, I had grounds to seize his assets, but I needed eyes on the ground. I met Miles Kersey at a coffee shop 3 towns over. Miles is Logan's brother-in-law, a structural engineer who looks at Logan's flash and bluster with the exhausted patience of a man who understands load-bearing walls. He had been trying to warn the family about Logan's spending for years. "He is going to crash." "Brianna," Miles said, staring into his black coffee. I heard him on the phone with her. This Sloan woman. She is not talking about investment strategies. She is talking about a 48-hour window. She keeps saying they need clean cash to bypass the regulators. "I know," I said, sliding a folder across the table. It contained a non-disclosure agreement. "I need you to keep listening. Miles. Do not intervene. If you warn him, he will just hide it better. I need you to tell me exactly when he plans to move the money." Miles hesitated, then signed the paper. He thinks he is the smartest guy in the room. That is what kills me. He asked me for $20,000 yesterday. Said it was for... God, I don't even remember the lie. "Did you give it to him?" "No," Miles said. "But his mother might." I nodded. That was the accelerant I had feared. I left Miles and called a private investigator I had used on a corporate espionage case last year. I did not need surveillance photos. I needed logistics. By 6 in the evening, a legal GPS tracker was magnetically attached to the wheel well of the luxury sedan Logan had rented to impress his imaginary clients. Then came the paperwork. I drafted a bridge loan agreement under the Glasshaven letterhead. It was a beautiful trap. The terms offered an immediate infusion of $50,000, exactly the amount Logan needed to buy into Sloane's scam. But buried in the fine print was a liquidity check clause. It stated that at 11:59 on the disbursement date, the lender reserved the right to verify the borrower's liquidity by pinging the account for a nominal sum. If the account was empty because, for instance, the borrower had just wired all his funds to a con artist, the loan would immediately default, triggering a confession of judgment. That meant immediate seizure of all collateral. I went home and started dinner. I roasted a chicken and set the table. When Logan walked in, he was vibrating with nervous energy. "Hey, babe," he said, kissing my cheek. "Something smells good. Just a roast," I said. "How was the meeting? Incredible," Logan said, loosening his tie. "The investors are practically begging to get in. I just need to finalize some paperwork tonight. It is complicated compliance stuff. You know how it is." "I do," I said, pouring him a glass of wine. "Make sure you read the fine print. Logan, you do not want to sign anything risky." He laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Risk is just the price of entry. Bree, you play it too safe. That is why I am the visionary." I smiled at him over my wine glass. "You are right. I am just the one who pays the bills." He did not hear the warning in my voice. He ate his dinner, checked his phone under the table, and texted Sloane while I did the dishes. He had no idea that the investor sending him the contract later that night was sitting 10 feet away from him. I went to bed early, leaving him in his study to work. I lay in the dark, listening to the murmur of his voice as he made call after call, trying to scrape together the buy-in money. He was manic, desperate, and completely blind. I closed my eyes. I was not jealous. Jealousy is a useless emotion. I was focused. I was not hunting a mistress. I was hunting a signature. Logan called it a project launch. I called it a crime scene in progress. He had framed the invitation as a peace offering, a chance for us to move past the tension of the last few days in a civilized setting. The venue was the ballroom of a hotel downtown, a place that charged $20 for a bottle of water. I arrived exactly 10 minutes late. In the corporate world, punctuality is a courtesy, but lateness is a power move. I wore a black silk dress that covered everything and cost more than Logan's car, though it bore no logos. I walked into the room not as a wife, but as an auditor conducting a site visit. The air smelled of expensive lilies and desperation. Sloane was in the center of the room, holding court like a monarch. She wore a shimmering gold gown that clung to her like a second skin. She was introducing herself as an international financial advisor, a title that means absolutely nothing without a license number attached to it. "We are not just building a portfolio," Sloane was saying, her voice projecting effortlessly across the room. "We are constructing a legacy. The window for the initial buy-in is closing, and we are looking for partners who understand that wealth favors the bold." It was gibberish. It was a word salad of buzzwords designed to bypass logic and trigger greed. Yet, the room was captivated. I saw Logan's college roommate reaching for a pen. I saw his cousin nodding enthusiastically. They were signing commitment forms right there on the high-top tables, pledging thousands of dollars to a ghost. I took a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter and stood near a pillar. Marjorie, Logan's mother, spotted me immediately. She made a beeline for me, her sequined dress rustling aggressively. Marjorie had never liked me. I asked too many questions. I did not worship her son. "I am surprised you came," Marjorie said, her voice loud enough to turn heads nearby. "I thought you would be at home with your spreadsheets." Logan invited me. "Marjorie," I said calmly. She scoffed, taking a sip of her champagne. "He is too good to you. Look at him. He is shining tonight. He finally found people who appreciate his vision. My son needs a woman who knows how to dream, not someone who just counts the money." I did not flinch. I did not defend myself. I simply looked past her shoulder at Sloane, who was raising a toast with Logan, as Sloane lifted her glass. The light caught a ring on her left hand. The setting was different, a modern, gaudy halo of diamonds instead of the original vintage platinum, but the center stone was unmistakable. It was a deep, cornflower blue sapphire with a microscopic chip near the bottom prong. My grandmother's ring, the one Logan said I had lost. He had not just stolen it, he had given it to his mistress to wear at a party where he invited his wife. The rage did not feel like fire. It felt like ice water flooding my veins. Marjorie followed my gaze and smirked, mistaking my silence for defeat. She stepped closer, and with a clumsy, theatrical stumble, she jerked her hand forward. Red wine splashed across the front of my black silk dress. The conversation nearby stopped. Marjorie feigned a gasp. Oh, dear. I am so clumsy. But really, Brianna, you should have been paying attention. I looked down at the stain. Then I looked at Marjorie. I did not raise my voice. I stepped into her personal space, close enough that she could smell the lack of fear on me. It is fine, Marjorie, I said softly. But you should probably check your phone. Your house has a new email. Her frown deepened, confusion flickering in her eyes. What enjoy the party, I said. I turned and walked out of the ballroom. I did not look back at Logan, who was laughing at something Sloane had whispered in his ear. I walked through the lobby, out the revolving doors, and into the cool night air. I sat in my car and locked the doors. I looked at the dashboard clock. It was 11:58 at night. I waited. The contract I had tricked Logan into signing the bridge loan from Glasshaven Capital Recovery had a very specific clause. At 1 minute to midnight, the automated system would ping his account to verify the funds were still there. If the balance was 0, which I knew it was because he had transferred everything to Sloane 10 minutes ago, the default notice would generate automatically. The clock ticked over, 11:59. Inside that ballroom, phones were about to start buzzing. I did not need to see the panic. I knew exactly what a financial collapse looked like. It starts with a notification, and it ends with a fall. At exactly 11:59, the server at Glasshaven Capital Recovery executed a scheduled command. It attempted to debit $500 from Logan Pierce's primary checking account, a standard liquidity verification test embedded in the loan agreement he had signed without reading. The transaction failed instantly. Insufficient funds. The system logged the error code, waited 3 milliseconds, and then triggered the cascade protocol. By 12 o'clock midnight, Logan's phone vibrated in his pocket. It was not a text from an admirer. It was an automated email with the subject line in bold red text, Notice of Default and Acceleration of Debt. Attached to the email was a document that officially recorded a second lien against Marjorie Pierce's home. Logan had convinced his mother to co-sign the loan as a formality, assuring her it was just to show asset strength. Now, that formality had become a foreclosure risk. I was sitting in my car 3 blocks away, watching the data stream on my tablet. I saw the email status change to read inside the hotel ballroom. The scene would be shifting from celebration to panic. Logan's call log showed he immediately dialed the customer service number listed in the email. It went straight to a voicemail I had recorded using a voice modulation software. You have reached the collections department of Glasshaven Capital Recovery. Our offices are currently closed. If you are calling regarding a default notice, please be advised that asset seizure protocols have been initiated. To contest this, please submit a written dispute within 24 hours. Marjorie's reaction was predictable. My phone lit up with a call from her. I let it ring. Then came a voicemail. Brianna, what did you do? Why am I getting emails about my house? You vindictive little... Her voice broke into a scream. I am coming over there. We are coming to your apartment right now to settle this. While Marjorie raged, Sloane went to work. I could reconstruct the conversation based on the frantic activity that followed. Sloane would be calm, professional, the eye of the storm. She would tell Logan that the default was a misunderstanding. a compliance freeze triggered by the bank. She would tell him that to release the funds and save his mother's house, they needed to pay a liquidity unlocking fee immediately. It is the classic sunk cost fallacy. When people are drowning, they will grab onto an anvil if you tell them it is a life raft. The alerts on my dashboard started flashing red. Credit inquiry, speedy cash, pawn and loan. Credit inquiry Chicago. Title loan services. Logan was liquidating his life. He drove to a 24-hour pawn shop on State Street. I saw the transaction hit the shared database I still had access to. He pawned his father's vintage Patek Philippe. The watch he had taken off specifically to hide it from me was now gone, sold for a fraction of its value to buy another hour of Sloane's lies. He did not stop there. He called 3 friends, begging for emergency transfers. He maximized the cash advance on a card he had opened secretly last month. He even signed a title lien on his car, the one he actually owned, not the rental. Watching the data felt like watching a man tear down the walls of his own house to feed a fire in the living room, convinced that if he just made it hot enough, the winter would never come. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Miles. She told him the system is frozen. She says she needs to take the cash to a clearing office near O'Hare to physically override the lock. She promised to be back for dinner. I don't believe her. I typed back a single line. Do not stop him. Record it. Logan was effectively burning his life to the ground to save a fantasy, and the tragedy was, he thought he was being a hero. He thought he was fixing a glitch. He had no idea that the glitch was the woman waiting in the car, and the system administrator was the wife he had left behind. Sloane walked out of the heavy double doors of the Pierce family estate carrying a leather weekender bag that looked heavy. Inside that bag was every cent Logan could beg, borrow, or steal in the last 4 hours. From my vantage point down the street, I could see Logan standing in the doorway. He looked gray. He was leaning against the frame as if his skeleton had dissolved, but there was a desperate, manic hope in his eyes. He actually believed this was the final hurdle. He believed that the woman walking away from him was carrying his fortune to a safe harbor rather than carrying the ashes of his life to a getaway car. I watched Sloane get into her rental sedan. She did not wave. She did not look back. She put the car in gear and drove away. I shifted my gaze to the tablet on my passenger seat. The GPS tracker I had installed on her vehicle blinked a steady rhythm. Sloane had told Logan she was going to a clearing office in the financial district to override the compliance lock. The dot on the screen did not head toward downtown Chicago. It merged onto the interstate and headed west. It was moving at 70 miles per hour, straight toward O'Hare International Airport. My phone screen lit up. It was Logan, texting her. Are you there yet, baby? Just text me when it is done. Sloane. The messages went from anxious to frantic in the span of 15 minutes. Then, the inevitable happened. The call went straight to voicemail. She had pulled the SIM card. It was the classic exit strategy. She was gone, and she had left him holding nothing but empty promises and a lien on his mother's house. But the real twist was not on the highway. It was inside the house. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was not an alert from the bank. It was a message from Rosie Alvarez, the housekeeper who had worked for Marjorie and Logan for 2 years. Rosie was a quiet, diligent woman who usually made herself invisible. There is a heavy envelope with a court stamp. Mrs. Pierce hid it in the bottom drawer of the china cabinet. She told Mr. Logan to burn it later. I called Rosie immediately. She answered on the first ring. Her voice hushed. Ms. Hale, she whispered. I cannot watch this anymore. I saw them hide your jewelry box last week. I heard Mrs. Pierce tell him to keep your things so you would have to come back and beg for them. It is cruel. I know. Rosie, I said, keeping my voice steady. I need you to do something for me, but you have to be careful. I will help, Rosie said. But I cannot have police storming in here. I have children, Ms. Hale. I cannot be involved in a fight. There will be no fighting. I promised. No shouting. No police. Just paper. I am going to drop a package in the service mailbox right now. Can you get it? Yes, she said. They are in the study arguing about the bank. They will not see me. I drove to the rear entrance of the estate. It took me 3 minutes to slide a thick, manila envelope into the discreet metal box near the servant's gate. Inside was the final nail in the coffin. It was a certified extract containing the bridge loan agreement Logan had signed, the default notice, and a single terrifying document, a certificate of beneficial ownership. This document proved that Glasshaven Capital Recovery was a wholly owned subsidiary of an entity controlled by Brianna Hale. I texted Rosie one last instruction. When he comes back, and he will come back angry, he is going to blame me. He is going to say I ruined him. When he does that, just hand him the envelope. I understand, Rosie replied. And Ms. Hale. He is calling you now. I looked at my phone. Logan was calling. I let it ring until it stopped. He was not calling to apologize. He was calling because he needed a fix, and he thought I was the only person left in the world who did not know he was a failure. He was wrong. I was the only person who knew exactly how much he had failed. The crash was not happening because Sloane had disappeared. The crash would happen when Logan opened that envelope and realized that the debt collector he was running from was the wife he had tried to deceive. I put the car in drive and headed toward my apartment. The trap was set. Now, gravity would do the rest. The Pierce family estate was usually a quiet monument to old money, but tonight it sounded like a collapsing lung. Logan stood in the foyer. He looked less like a businessman and more like a ghost that had been evicted from its own haunting. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. Sloane was gone. The money was gone. The only thing that remained was the smell of fear and the relentless pinging of his phone as the automated debt collection emails continued to arrive. Marjorie was not comforting him. She was pacing the Persian rug, clutching her phone like a weapon. "You have to sue her!" Logan Marjorie shrieked, her voice cracking. "This Glasshaven company, it has to be her doing. It has to be that cold-hearted woman you married. She is trying to humiliate us. She is the one who counts the pennies. She is the one doing this." Logan shook his head, running his hands through his messy hair. He was vibrating with a terrifying, manic denial. "It isn't Brianna. Mom. And Sloane. She didn't leave me. She just got stuck," Logan insisted, his voice trembling. "It is a regulatory freeze. I just checked the forums. It happens with international transfers. She needs 12 more hours. By tomorrow morning, the funds will clear, and we will be laughing about this." "You put a lien on my house," Marjorie yelled. "You told me it was just a piece of paper. You said it was a formality. I had to," Logan said, his voice dropping to a whisper. The leverage was the only way to get the multiplier. You don't understand high finance. Mom, it is high risk, high reward. I had to sign for you because you wouldn't have understood the vision." In the corner of the room, sitting in a wingback chair, Miles Kersey remained perfectly still. He did not intervene. He simply held his phone casually in his hand, the recording app running in the background. He had just captured Logan Pierce admitting on tape that he had coerced his mother into signing a mortgage document she did not understand. That recording was worth more than the furniture in the room. Rosie Alvarez stood in the shadow of the hallway leading to the kitchen. She held a dust cloth, pretending to work, but her eyes were fixed on the crumbling dynasty before her. She knew exactly what was in the envelope she had retrieved from the mailbox earlier, and she knew that the man pacing the floor was already dead. He just had not stopped moving yet. Then came the second blow. Marjorie stopped pacing and slumped onto the sofa, her face pale. "It gets worse," Marjorie whispered. "I tried to fix it. While you were chasing that woman, I took the diamond tennis bracelet, the one Brianna left in the guest room last year, and I took it to the jeweler on Michigan Avenue." Logan stared at her. "You sold Brianna's bracelet, I tried." Marjorie spat out. They wouldn't take it. They called the manager. They said the serial number was flagged in the database. She reported it as lost 6 months ago. Logan. If I hadn't run out of the store, they would have called the police. If the cops come here, if they start looking at the books. She trailed off, terrified. The realization that Brianna had been quietly documenting their theft for months hit the room like a physical weight. Logan's face shifted. The panic was replaced by a sudden, desperate resolve. He grabbed his car keys. "I am going to see her," Logan said. "She won't help you," Miles said from the chair. "She loves me," Logan said, his voice cracking. "She is just hurt. I can fix this. I need to explain. Brianna is the only one who can stop the audit. She is my wife. She is the reset button." He turned and ran out the door, believing that his charm was still a currency that held value. He did not know that his account had been closed long ago. Rosie watched the heavy front door slam shut. She looked at the envelope tucked securely in her apron pocket. She let out a long, slow breath. "He doesn't know," Rosie whispered to the empty hallway. "He doesn't know the paper is waiting." Logan did not kick down the door. He did not scream or threaten violence. Violence requires strength, and Logan Pierce was a man who had been hollowed out by his own deception. He stood in the vestibule of my apartment building, pressing the buzzer repeatedly, his face pressed close to the camera lens. I watched him from the monitor in my kitchen. He looked feverish. His tie was undone, his hair was disheveled, and his eyes were darting around the empty lobby as if he expected the police to jump out from behind the potted plants. "Bree, please, I know you are there." His voice crackled through the intercom speaker, tinny and distorted. "I just need 5 minutes, just 5 minutes to explain. It is all a big misunderstanding. Please, baby, just let me up." I did not let him up. Instead, I put on my shoes and took the elevator down to the lobby. When the elevator doors opened, Logan was leaning against the security glass. He saw me and straightened up, a flicker of his old, charming smile trying to break through the panic on his face. He looked at me and saw a lifeline. He saw the wife who had paid the bills, the woman who had always fixed his mistakes. He convinced himself, right there in that moment, that I was coming down to save him. "Bree," he exhaled, the glass door clicking as I buzzed it unlocked. He rushed in, reaching for my hands. "Oh, thank God. You have no idea. It has been a nightmare. Mom is hysterical. There is some glitch with the bank. And this crazy email about a lien." I stepped back, keeping my hands clasped behind my back. I did not say a word. I just looked at him. "We can fix it," Logan continued, his words tumbling out faster now. "I just need you to look at the accounts. You are the best at this. You can find the error. It is just a clerical error. Right." The service elevator behind me dinged softly. Logan froze. He turned his head as the doors slid open. Rosie Alvarez stepped out. She was wearing her coat and holding a thick, manila envelope in her hands. Her face was calm, devoid of the subservience she usually performed for Marjorie. She looked like a woman who was done carrying secrets. Logan blinked, confused. "Rosie, what are you doing here?" Rosie walked past me and stopped in front of him. She held out the envelope. "Mr. Pierce." "This is the paper that you made me bring," Rosie said, her voice steady and clear. "I am just following orders." Logan looked from Rosie to the envelope, then back to me. A shadow of doubt crossed his face, but he took the package. His hands were shaking so badly that he tore the paper as he ripped it open. He pulled out the document. It was the Notice of Default and Asset Recovery Activation. "I don't understand," Logan muttered, his eyes scanning the header. "Glass Haven. I need to call these people. I need to tell them." His voice died in his throat. He had reached the bottom of the first page. He was staring at the signature line for the authorized officer of Glasshaven Capital Recovery. It did not say John Doe. It did not list a faceless corporate entity. It was signed, in blue ink, Brianna Hale. The silence in the lobby was absolute. I watched the color drain from his face. It started at his lips and washed down to his neck, leaving him as pale as the paper in his hands. "You," he whispered, looking up at me, his eyes wide with horror. You are the lender. Read the terms. Logan," I said. He looked back down. He read the clause detailing the collateral. He read the line about the immediate seizure of his car. He read the line confirming the second mortgage on his mother's house was now active and enforceable. Sweat began to bead on his forehead, rolling down his temple. He tried to laugh. It was a wet, choking sound. This is a joke. You are joking. Right. You can't foreclose on my mom. We are married. This is crazy." He flipped the page to the appendix. The laughter stopped instantly. Stapled to the back was a high-resolution photograph. It was a picture of my grandmother's Art Deco sapphire ring, the one he had stolen, the one he had given to Sloane. But the caption below the photo did not list it as a gift. It listed it as stolen property, case file number 492. Logan made a sound that wasn't quite a word. It was the sound of a lung collapsing. He clutched his chest, his fingers crumpling the lapel of his jacket. He did not faint for dramatic effect. He did not swoon like a character in a bad play. His knees simply stopped working. The weight of the truth, the sheer crushing reality that I had been watching him, recording him, and legally dismantling him while he thought he was winning severed the connection between his brain and his legs. He hit the marble floor of the lobby with a heavy, sickening thud. He gasped for air, his hand clawing at the carpet, the papers scattering around him like autumn leaves. I stood over him. I did not kneel. I did not call his name. I watched him struggle to breathe, realizing that for the first time in his life, he wasn't dying from a disease. He was dying from the paperwork. I dialed 911 with the steady hand of a woman who had rehearsed this scenario in her nightmares, though in my dreams, I was usually the one needing the ambulance. I gave the operator the address and described Logan's condition, conscious, breathing, but catatonic. As soon as the call ended, I did not hold his hand. I did not stroke his hair. I switched applications on my phone and sent a 2-gigabyte encrypted file to a contact I had at the Federal Financial Investigation Bureau. I had just summoned help for his heart, but I had effectively signed the death warrant for his freedom. While the paramedics worked on Logan in the lobby, checking his vitals and murmuring about stress-induced palpitations, my phone vibrated with a message from Miles. It was a screenshot of an airline database log. Sloane had purchased a one-way ticket to Zurich 3 weeks ago. She had booked her escape before Logan had even told me about the investor meeting. He had not been a partner. He had been a target from the moment she saw his watch. Then came the text from Rosie. She had sent a photo of my velvet ring box tucked behind a stack of embroidered towels in Marjorie's linen closet. Mrs. Pierce gave it to him the night he said he was going to propose to Sloane. She said it was better on a woman who knew how to spend money than a woman who hoarded it. I stared at the screen. My grandmother's ring had not been stolen by a stranger. It had been weaponized by my mother-in-law to finance her son's infidelity. I forwarded the image to Harper Wynn. Within 10 minutes, Harper replied that she had a judge on the line ready to sign an emergency asset recovery order. We were not just going to report the ring stolen, we were going to legally repossess it from the crime scene that was the Pierce estate. I sat on the lobby bench and opened my laptop. Sloane was good, but she was arrogant. She was moving the money through a series of digital wallets, trying to wash it clean before it hit an offshore account. She was using a layering technique that works on amateurs, but I trace money for a living. I saw the pattern in the transaction hash. She was not Sloane Marquette. My database search flagged her facial recognition against an Interpol notice. She was a chameleon who had run this exact scam in Seattle, Austin, and Miami. Chicago was just a layover. I typed a command into the tracking software, flagging the wallet address as fraudulent to the exchange platform. I froze the transfer exactly 3 minutes before it would have become untraceable. Across the lobby, the paramedics were helping Logan sit up. He refused transport to the hospital, claiming he was fine, though he looked like a man who had been hollowed out. He saw me sitting there, the blue light of the laptop reflecting in my eyes. He stumbled toward me, his legs still weak. "Brianna," Logan wheezed, falling onto the bench beside me. He reached for my arm, his fingers trembling. "I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. She said it was a sure thing. I was scammed." I pulled my arm away. "You were not just scammed. Logan, you were an accomplice." "I only wanted to make it big." He sobbed, tears cutting tracks through the sweat on his face. I wanted to prove I was better than you. I wanted to show you that I didn't need your salary. I wanted to be the one writing the checks." The admission hung in the air, pathetic and sharp. "He did not cheat for love. He cheated for ego. And now you have written checks you can never cash," I said. I turned the laptop screen toward him. It showed the frozen wire transfer and a draft of a confession statement I had prepared while he was unconscious. "You have 2 choices, Logan," I said, my voice devoid of pity. "Option 1 is that I hand over the full file to the authorities, including the part where you solicited funds from friends and family under false pretenses. That is wire fraud, and you will go to prison for 5 to 10 years. He gasped, clutching his chest again. "No, please, Bree. Option 2, I continued, pointing to the document on the screen. "You sign this. You admit that you were the victim of a confidence scheme, but you also admit that you knowingly misled investors, your friends, about the nature of the deal. You provide me with every text, every email, and every photo you have of her. You help me nail her." And then what he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "And then you pray that your cooperation buys you probation instead of a cell." I said, "But first, we are going to take a ride. There is a room waiting for us downtown, and it has very clear glass walls. It is time for you to see what a real investigation looks like." The glass walls of the Northbridge conference room were unforgiving, reflecting every bead of sweat that rolled down Logan's temple. He sat at the far end of the mahogany table, looking small against the backdrop of the projection screen. I stood at the head of the table, holding the clicker like a detonator. "This is the anatomy of a lie," I said, my voice echoing in the silence. I clicked the button. The screen flashed a split timeline. On the left was the calendar entry Logan had faked, labeled Investor Dinner. On the right was the security footage from the elevator, time-stamped perfectly, showing him leaning in to kiss Sloane's neck. I clicked again. The screen displayed a flow chart of funds. It showed the $20,000 he had drained from our savings, the $10,000 he had borrowed from Miles, and the $50,000 he had liquidated from his assets. The door opened, and a man in a gray suit walked in. He was from the fictional Financial Crimes Task Force, a contact Harper Wynn had leveraged for this exact moment. "We intercepted Sloane Marquette at Customs in New York an hour ago," the agent said, placing a file on the table. "She was attempting to board a flight to Zurich using a falsified passport. We have frozen the accounts. We managed to recover about 60% of the funds." Logan let out a sob of relief, his head dropping into his hands. "Oh, thank God, thank God. See, I told you. I told you I was a victim. She tricked me. You are a victim of theft." "Yes," the agent said, his voice flat, "but you are also a perpetrator of fraud. You solicited funds from friends and family under the pretense of a secured investment while knowingly bypassing regulatory compliance. That is a federal offense. Mr. Pierce?" Logan's head snapped up. "What? No. I didn't know ignorance is not a defense when you signed the papers." I said. The door opened again. This time, it was Marjorie. She looked indignant, ready to scream, until she saw the agent. She froze. "Mrs. Pierce," I said, "please sit down. We were just discussing the second mortgage you signed, and the insurance fraud regarding my jewelry. I never—" Marjorie stammered, clutching her purse. Rosie stepped forward from the corner of the room where she had been waiting. She was flanked by a legal aide to ensure her protection as a whistleblower. She placed a clear, sealed evidence bag on the table. Inside sat my grandmother's Art Deco sapphire ring. "I found this where you hid it, Mrs. Pierce," Rosie said softly. "In the linen closet. Right where you put it after you told Mr. Logan to give it to the other woman." Marjorie collapsed into a chair, her face turning the color of ash. She looked at the agent, then at Logan, and finally at the ring. The matriarch of the family had been dismantled by her own greed. Logan looked at his mother, then at me. The realization hit him that his mother could go to jail because of his schemes. He slid out of his chair and fell to his knees. "Bree, please," he begged, crawling toward me. "Not my mom. Do what you want with me, but don't let them take her. She just wanted to help me. Please." I looked down at him. I felt nothing, no anger, no pity, just the cold satisfaction of a balanced equation. "I can recommend that the firm declines to press charges against Marjorie for the theft," I said. "And I can ask the agent to consider your cooperation as a mitigating factor. Anything." Logan wept. "I will do anything." I slid a document across the table. "Then sign this." It was a full confession. It stated that he had lied about his whereabouts to conduct an extramarital affair. It stated that he had coerced his mother into financial ruin. It stated that he had stolen my property. It included a clause that he would repay every cent to his friends and family before he saw a dime of his own money for the next 10 years. "You will admit it," I said. "To everyone. No more stories about bad luck. No more stories about evil ex-wives. You will tell them the truth." Logan took the pen. His hand shook so violently that the plastic rattled against the table. He signed his name. Then he signed Marjorie's release of claims. He looked up at me, his eyes broken. "Why? Bree, why did you let it go this far? You could have stopped me at the door." I picked up the file labeled Project Pierce and closed it. "I didn't destroy you, Logan," I said, my voice quiet and final. "I just stopped saving you." I picked up the evidence bag. I broke the seal and slid the sapphire ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. I turned and walked out of the glass room, leaving the three of them the liar, the enabler, and the law to sort through the wreckage. I walked out of the building and into the Chicago sunlight. I checked my watch. It was time for lunch, and for the first time in years, I was not counting the cost. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and let's share our thoughts on this karma-filled ending. If you enjoyed watching Justice Be Served, please subscribe to the channel Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.